And your life.
Good afternoon, Summa scholars. Today, welcome to the Daily Summa. Today is May 3rd in Eastertide. How you doing, Joe?
Pretty good, dude.
So here's the sitch, folks. We went through fire, we went through storms, we went through hurricane force, gale, wind, tornadoes. We've gone through electricity outages. We've gone through a bit of starvation, deprivation. Now my vehicle is having difficulties, so we're having difficulties getting close to each other. Wi-Fi is going down. There's been every number of problems. Much different, I'm telling you why we're late, much different than when I was in the Hermitage. You just walk down the hall, press a button, good morning, Joe, 3, 2, 1, go, and it was done. Things are a little bit more difficult in this now, but that's fine. The Beaver Galleon is not intimidated by a little squall, but that's why we're late. We're not sure how everything is going to go while we're in this kind of transitional thing. So I don't have the ability to drive to Joe's. We don't have the ability to drive to the pottery shop, etc. So
suffice it to say, Daily Summa might be a little weird next week or so.
That's probably a shorter way to put it.
Yeah.
But so anyway, it's all right. You'll be able to watch it whenever you get around to it. Tomorrow we're going to try to do it in the evening as per our tradition, Sunday evening. And then yeah, we'll just see how it goes on Monday. Anything to tell, Joe? Any stories you want to convey?
Being sick is not nice.
You have been deathly ill. Maybe deathly is a little pushing it, but feeling almost like deathly.
Maybe halfway there.
Yeah.
Halfway, which is still a pretty long way off.
It's worse than this. It's worse than
than this. Yeah. It's true. Yeah.
There have been still the merrymaking of Easter continues. Tonight there's a Latin dance get together for a friend of ours. That last night there was jazz night, which turned into a long night of discussion into the wee hours on the porch with my newly growing pal. Well, he's not growing. Our newly growing friendship pal, Harrison.
Yeah.
And excellent. But
You're saying he's not growing?
I corrected it.
You're saying is he stagnant?
He's completely stagnant. One of the most stagnant dudes I've ever met, Harrison. Well known for being very just boring and not changing and not
standing
growing.
Water.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, the merrymaking continues. And so, you know what I'm actually thinking of doing, Joe? I'm giving serious contemplation to maybe 3 days at a KOA.
A what?
KOA, like campground.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. You could.
In which I would do it like we did it in the Hermitage.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be kind of fun, a little camping background.
Yeah.
But 3 days of just, it's because there's roommates where I'm at. So sometimes this precious little moment that I get to catch up on sleep is interrupted by stomping feet or talk or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, maybe I should just do a 3-day camp. That's something I like to do anyway.
Or you should get a fan.
It's not as fun though. Okay.
It creates a reliance. We when the power was out, we didn't have a fan. We're all used to the white noise, and that kind of drowns out the random little steps, little cries at night, little here's, little there's, and we all slept terribly. We realized how
while being sick. Well, that was you got sick just after that.
Right at the same time, basically.
Yeah.
In conjunction.
I used to always go to sleep with the box fan.
Yeah.
They're wondrous. Anything else? A lot of cool stuff happened last night. A lot of
funny story. When I was traveling a lot for work, Spotify does their yearly playlist and stuff. I might have told you this before, but on the Spotify Wrapped or whatever, it's like your top songs or this, and this. And my 3 top songs were box fan noises because I would sleep.
Oh yeah, I heard this. You said it once at Chesterton's.
Yeah, I would sleep in hotel rooms and they would be deathly quiet, and I couldn't deal with it. So I started playing box fan noises when I was alone at night.
Yeah,
it was magical.
I should start doing ambient. I have a YouTube list of ambient videos for different seasons. Spring, summer, winter, and then the rain. thing.
The rain, of course.
It's very nice. And there's always crackling fire.
Mm-hmm.
Crackling fire, rain, stuff like that. The dream would be to live in a place that looks like some of these ambient video screens. We'll see if we can make that happen by enough people joining the Daily Summa. That's what you need to do. All right, let's continue on with Article 13. Moving into Article 14, whether God knows enunciable things. I looked up the word enunciable. Let's see if she's about to speak. This AI person. I looked up the word enunciable just to see how it was defined. So we may go back to that. But let's do the house cleaning of reply to objection 3, ending the reply to objection 2 that we finished or almost finished earlier yesterday. So, and top of page 167, Article 13, reply to objection to the very end sentence, and thus it is necessary, as also in the antecedent, for everything that is while it is must necessarily be, as the philosopher says. Again, that's philosophy speak. He's saying if something exists, it must exist. For everything that is while it is must necessarily be. The reason the term while it is in there is because the question is about contingency. So something could be or couldn't be, like an algorithm, like a click, it could be left or right, the road less traveled, it could be either way, and that's going to make all the difference in how everything plays out. So we're talking about contingency, but the idea is for everything that is while it is, it must necessarily be. But once it changes, or if perhaps God sees other possibilities, but while it is, it must necessarily be. Reply to objection 3. Things reduced to act in time, as known by us successively in time, but by God are known in eternity, which is above time. This is where he's going to give that swank metaphor that I quoted yesterday that's so good about the road and being above the road and seeing. This is where he gets it. So it's good to repeat it because it's such a excellent metaphor. Whence to us they cannot be certain, forasmuch as we know future contingent things as such, but they are certain to God alone, whose understanding is in eternity above time. Just as he who goes along the road does not see those who come after him. You walk down the road, you turn the corner, somebody comes out of the building and starts walking down that road. You don't see them. They're out of your purview. Just as he who goes along the road does not see those who come after him, whereas he who sees the whole road from a height sees at once all traveling by the way. Somebody in the drone would see the person going in and out, moving Koyaanisqatsi style. If you've never seen the movie Koyaanisqatsi, Japanese movie from the 80s, it's really good. Have you seen it? It's pretty amazing. It's a Japanese word, and I'm not quite sure how to spell it. I bet if you gave your best effort, Koyaanisqatsi, it would come up because it's such a popular movie among people who know. And it's such a weird word that it would probably be used to bringing it up. But it means...
Vroom, vroom.
Vroom, vroom. I'm not going to fight the volume with this voice. Done enough screaming over crowds. And also having that throat problem, coughing. But Koyaanisqatsi, I think, means world gone out of control or something like that. I used to know exactly what it meant. But it's brilliant. They take a series of videos, and Philip Glass is the composer. So you're hearing Philip Glass music, a lot of repetition. And then you're seeing stuff like city streets. Just to give you an idea of the type of thing they do, this is probably the most famous scene. They start showing an Oscar Mayer hot dog factory. And you see all the people working like machines in among all these machines. And the hot dogs are going down conveyor belts in front of them, and they're picking bad ones out. And then you see it stop and turn left, and then it goes to the next person, and there's all these turns and stops, and they'll split and go different directions, these hot dogs. They film that with Philip Glass music in the background, like dramatic. 70 whatever, like huge cameras, like dramatic. We're in Star Wars or the other one that I'm trying to remember but can't. 2001 Space Odyssey, like dramatic. And then they'll go up above and you're seeing the hot dogs moving below. And then they switch it to the New York City streets. And they do the same shot with people going down the street. And then they speed up the hot dogs and then they speed up the people. And they start putting them side by side. You're seeing the hot dogs do this, and then you're seeing the people stop at the light, and just the all these images showing the mechanization of modern society, and it's powerful. Koyan Skatsu. But if you're in a drone above, you can see how people are moving on a larger scale, and Thomas is using that to say that God's view is just such. His glance is over all of eternity. Hence, what is known by us must be necessary, even as it is in itself. For what is future contingent in itself cannot be known by us, whereas what is known by God must be necessarily according to the mode in which they are subject to the divine knowledge, as already stated, but not absolutely as considered in their own causes. Just, again, we're looking at our beloved's hands. We're repeating things over and over. That'll really be apparent in this enunciable thing. It almost seems like a no-duh question. But we're just wanting to, over and over in different ways, repeat that everything, all of being, everything that moved out from the Big Bang is pouring forth from God's essence. And we're invited to chase the breadcrumb trails back to our origin. And it's the ultimate father quest. So just know that our knowledge comes discursively through causes and then effects and then possible contingencies. But God's, everything that's happening is a manifestation and coming forth out of his essence. And he sees it as one reality in himself. Hence also this proposition. Everything known by God must necessarily be, is usually...
Oh, got a bird there.
I heard that. That was a blue jay?
Yeah.
Yeah, set on that can.
Yeah.
Nice. Had a wonderful conversation about birds with Kevin this morning, waiting for Miss Lucy to show.
She would.
Yes, he would. And of course, it became an elevated spiritual conversation, as it often does with Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
And then I showed him Wingspan app board game and probably ruined his life. Okay, everything known by God must necessarily be, is usually distinguished, for this may refer to the thing or to the same. If it refers to the thing, it is divided and false. For the senses, everything which God knows is necessary. If understood of the saying, it is composite and true. For the senses, this proposition, that which is known by God is necessary. I may be a little sketchy on this one, but correct me if I'm wrong, you doctors who watch this, but I'm pretty sure Thomas is trying to make a distinction between what comes into being and then what God knows as contingencies. And that's something I'd really like to go into more. I wish I had more time to go into this page, because, and I would like to hear also what the Franciscans say about this, Saint Bonaventure and whatnot. Because as one of the boys, Ralph and Larry, said earlier, if God is seeing something, he knows it. And if he's pure act, it has act in some sense. So there's a lot of deeper depths that could be going into here. But we're just going to have to continue with our flyover. And I can tell I'm dragging. I can tell my voice is dragging.
I think everyone's dragging today, man.
Yeah. Especially in this town. There's been a great deal of Easter merrymaking, which is beautiful. But it's funny. Everyone was talking after the octave. Everyone was like, I need a nap. I need to recover from the octave. But the things have still kept going. Yeah. Now some urge an objection and say that this distinction holds good with regards to forms that are separable from the subject. Thus, if I said, it is possible for a white thing to be black, it is false as applied to the saying, and true as applied to the thing. the saying is, it is possible for a white thing to be black. That is possible as a saying. Now, we can have you can't say that a black thing is white or can be white. He goes on further and explains it further. For a thing which is white can become black, whereas this saying, a white thing is black, can never be true. This is just simple logic. The saying a white thing is black is just not true. But to say that a white thing can become black, it is possible for a white thing to be black, is true. Perhaps you could have a swan that was born with fluffy white down, and then it grows into a black swan. This white thing has become black. But in forms that are inseparable from the subject, this distinction does not hold. For instance, if I said a black crow can be white, for in both senses it is false. Of course, you could probably have a albino crow, but still, we know what Thomas is saying.
Yeah.
Black crows are black, and that's what they remain. Now, to be known by God is inseparable from the thing, for what is known by God cannot be not known. This objection, however, would hold if these words, that which is known, implied any disposition inherent to the subject. But since they import an act of the knower, something can be attributed to the thing known in itself, even if it always be known, which is not attributed to it insofar as it stands under actual knowledge. Thus, material existence is attributed to a stone in itself, which is not attributed to it inasmuch as it is known. We've talked about this before. That's a lot of garbled philosophy speak. And when I first read it, it still sounds garbled. But it's a distinction that we've made before. It's one thing to know something in the mind. It's another thing for it to enter into the material world and be, as they would say in Kabbalah, manifest in Malchus. Or they might say in, this would be a metaphor perhaps, but quantum physics, when something is in potency and it collapses into act. So God is knowing all things and all contingencies. But it seems like Thomas is wanting to say that doesn't mean that he's knowing them in a way that is born in act. And so that's very interesting, especially when you consider the two Hebrew words for know, which I've talked about before. Yada, which is like data knowledge. I'm pretty sure it's Yada. And then das. I'm sure it's das. Da'at or das, depending on if you're Ashkenaz or Sephardic. But das knowledge is the word that was used when Adam knew his wife Eve. So perhaps you could have a type of knowledge that's not manifest in Malchus from our perspective. And so God would have that knowledge, a potency knowledge of contingent things. And then from our perspective, things pop into being, come into being, and then God can have das knowledge with those from our perspective. Remember, God's immutable. Nothing is changing in God. But our relation to him is changing, and perhaps our relation to those thoughts within him are changing. But everything that is in God has never changed, will never change. He is completely immutable, and it all is in the divine essence and seen with, as Thomas likes to say, a single glance. All right, that's as good as we can do for that. Now we move on to Article 14, whether God knows enunciable things. Let's read the definition of enunciable. Enunciable means capable of being clearly stated or pronounced, enunciated. It describes something that can be expressed in language or articulated in speech. Specifically, it refers to the ability to be said or pronounced distinctly. So, right away, Larry is going to say that God does not know enunciable things, which means we know he does. But again, this is just a great proof of what I'm saying. And a Father James, what is his name? Is it Brent? Who says that this is a long drawn out meditation on the presence of God.
See if I can
I
find
think
out.
it's James Brent.
I think it is, but I want to double check. 'cause he's a
Brehnt, I think is what
He's
it
a very
is.
smart man, and I want to credit him.
Indeed, sir. He says the Summa is a long meditation on the presence of God. So we're going to meditate on God's presence in enunciable things, language, but also perhaps any distinction, I think.
Brent, as if you thought to spell Brent the correct way, even though you did not just now.
Okay, what is it then?
Brent.
I don't know why I stuck an H in there.
I don't know, you're weird, dude.
Trying to be fancy. It's just Brent, folks.
Is Craig having a weird H in there? Is that what it is? Craig?
Well, in the Gaelic, I think.
Yeah, I probably would.
Craig.
Craig.
All right, Article 14. Whether God knows enunciable things. Larry, up on deck. It seems that God does not know enunciable things. For to know enunciable things belongs to our intellect as it composes and divides. But in the divine intellect, there is no composition, therefore God does not know enunciable things. Okay. He knows it. Turning of the Page is sponsored by High Casual Gothic. High Gothic Casual.
You are never.
High Gothic. I got it, dude. High Gothic Casual. It's the 3-second rule.
You never
High
get it
Gothic.
first time.
If it drops out onto the floor in 3 seconds.
5-second rule.
You're dirty. I heard somebody once like 5-minute rule. Came in and saw. Okay, enunciable things.
I'll just throw in there too. This isn't sponsored or anything, but I'm loving this Chesterton cigar I'm having right now.
Is it working good for you?
It's working good for me.
I might have to have another one recently.
Yeah.
As you well know, I don't smoke many cigars. I did for the
little baby.
It's because I love my pipe. Intelligent things. You wouldn't understand. More intelligent people do that. But, what was that thing called? Oh, it was the grand opening. It was the official opening of Chesterton's, right?
It was like the launch of their cigars.
Oh, it's the cigar launch.
Yeah. Like of their house cigars. Yeah.
I got that mixed up with the official opening of the Dumb Ox Club or whatever.
That's
but
right,
yeah, it was the launch of their new cigars. Quite an event with late nights.
It was a good one, man. It was a good one.
Still haven't caught up on all the sleep.
It's true.
Objection 2. Let's see what Ralph has to say. Further, every kind of knowledge is made through some likeness, but in God there is no likeness of enunciable things, since he is altogether simple. Therefore, God does not know enunciable things. All right, here we go. On the contrary, it is written, the Lord knoweth the thoughts of men. But enunciable things are contained in the thoughts of men. Therefore, God does know enunciable things. Let's hear the philosophy. I answer that, since it is in the power of our intellect to form enunciations, and since God knows whatever is in his own power or in that of creatures, as said above in Article 9, it follows of necessity that God knows all enunciations that can be formed. Now, guys, this is so simple that it almost just sounds silly to say it. This is a whole big long thing about saying God knows everything. But again, like we said, you don't just want to state a belief that God knows everything. It's almost too magical thinking. It's like you want to go into the depths of each facet and part of it and really see every aspect of it. And again, we're doing a meditation on our beloved's hands. So this isn't all intellectual work. If it sounds simple, it's doing something to you. Even though it's simple, it's forming your soul to meet here every day and discuss the Creator.
It's like things that imprint on your intellect through your eyes, right? Same kind of thing.
Peepers. Joe's got good peepers. His assessment of humanity is often right on track. With me, somehow he gets confused. But generally speaking, I think I'm too much of a mystery to you for you to get it right. Because you're always saying so many intimate mystery. You're always saying so many crazy, ridiculous, wrong things about me. But you're really pretty good at everybody else. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, I wish you guys could see his face. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, just as he knows material things immaterially, and composite things simply, so likewise he knows enunciable things, not after the manner of enunciable things, as if in his intellect there were compositions or divisions of enunciations. For he knows each thing by a simple intelligence, by understanding the essence of each thing, as if we, by the very fact that we understand what man is, were to understand all that can be predicated of man. As soon as you understand what man is, we had talked about this before with like Annie going out for the first time, seeing a horse. She never knew what a horse was. You take her out to the Svinsky's farm. Hey, look, Annie, there's a horse. Horse? Yeah, that's a horse. She has the intellectual capability as a human given to her by God to do what dogs can't do. She can begin to abstract principles of horsiness and then what it is to be a horse. So then this is the amazing thing that we humans do that make us able to write stories and play D&D. You can say once you know what the thing is, like once you're defining the nature of the thing, then or the essence of the thing, then you can start to make comments on its nature. Once you know the essence of the thing, what it is, which is kind of that's why you're going up this beautiful chain of divine ascent. Because think of what's happening when you show a child the horse. Or if you start defining it to them, let's say you read to the child about horses before you go show her one. So horses are animals. Okay, right away, that's a big change in her mind. It's not a rock, it's not a plant, it's not fire. It's an animal. So she's going to have this amorphous, animal-y thing. She might even smile. And then the animal is big, tall, and majestic. What does that mean exactly? And then you say it has hooves. It has a tail. She might picture a pigtail. So she's not quite got it straight. There's different, and you start closing in on an essence, but you're doing it by numerous definitions. Remember what definitions are. They're defining principles. That's why God has none. That's why we use apophatic theology, because you're saying what he is not. Because anytime you say what something is, you're defining, and defining is a limiting characteristic, and God is eternal. I suppose this is a little review here all of a sudden. But Annie starts hearing these words. She starts forming an idea in her head. It starts coming together, and it's moving towards what we would call an essence. She's getting formed into her logoi, into her mind, the essence of horsiness. Then she goes out to the farm and she actually sees one. So maybe she smells it. She gets close to it. She feels some fear. Like it's a fearful thing when you first get into the presence of a horse. It took me a while to get comfortable with them. And then, which I'm still not completely.
Mm-hmm.
But you hear the sound of their hooves, the thunder of it. So now she walks away from the farm, and it's not just words, but she's really closed in on the essence of horse. She may see numerous kinds of horses. Like she may see the Amish with their quarter horses going down the street, very sleek and slight legs. And then she comes in the presence of a majestic Clydesdale, and so, ooh, still horse. And she sees how it's different, but also not different like a dog is different, or a narwhal or something, or a bird that Kevin was talking about. Blue, or butterfly, blue spotted fritillary or something. She sees, so now she's got an essence in her mind. And from essence, you can begin to make conjectures and guesses about nature. Remember, essence is what the thing is. Nature is how that essence acts. So cat's nature is cattiness. Its essence is cattiness. But cattiness's nature is that it can jump up fences and walk over the top of the fence and be balanced and be very fast and stealthy. That's its nature. Nature comes forth from essence. But the nature can be seen more clearly than the essence. You can't see an essence. Someone can see that, Annie can see the cat and start to see its nature. And then she forms an essence in her mind. And with that essence, she can move over. And when she gets older, play D&D. Now I'm connecting it back to D&D, and this is why I said all this. The strange thing that a human can do. She can know what that cat would do if she were to suddenly decide she needs something in the scene that's getting boring, or she needs something to alert the guards. And so she says, a cat runs through. And because she knows the essence, she can know that in this particular setting that you're in the story, this is what the cat would do and this is what would happen. And she does it like lightning. She knows what the nature of the thing would be because she has that essence sitting, just hovering there deep in her intellect. Excuse me, I've had this cold thing that I'm getting over or something. So, excuse me, folks. So, what you're doing is going up the ladder of divine ascent. You're moving out of the material realm into the immaterial, into the unseen. The essence, nature is more easy to see. You're actually seeing accidents. The light hitting your eyes is the fur, the color of the fur, all those are accidents. But those accidents cleave to this essence or this suppositum of this particular cat in the material thing, and you see those accidents moving in a certain nature, then that nature is assimilated by you through the accidents. And then when it happens over and over, you begin to apprehend an essence that all of these cats or all of these horses share. And then you can take that, pull it out of your spirit, bring it back out into the material realm with words and tell stories in a D&D game on the fly. So it's like you move from accidents to nature to an essence, then it was imprinted upon you, now dwells within you. In secret, no one can see it. There's no weight to it. There's not 6 pounds of cat essence within you. There's no weight to it. It's immaterial. It's spiritual. But then your spirit reaches in to your soul and pulls out that essence of cat and then starts saying words to tell the story of the D&D thing. So it's moving out and in and out and all the time. But in God, that doesn't happen. In God, his essence contains all things and sees, knows, and loves all things that are in one glance, in one act of being. But that act is an act of love for all of existence. This, however, does not happen in our intellect, which discourses from one thing to another. Discursive. It says discourses, but that's discursive knowledge, as we talked about in a previous article. For as much as the intelligible species represents one thing in such a way as not to represent another, hence when we understand what man is, we do not forthwith understand other things which belong to him, but we understand them one by one, according to a certain succession. On this account, the things we understand as separated, we must reduce to one by way of composition or division by forming an enunciation. All these things that we see and know and think about, we reduce them to a particular enunciation. Now, the species of the divine intellect, which is God's essence, suffices to represent all things. Excuse me. Hence, by understanding his essence, God knows the essences of all things, and also whatever can be accidental to them. So again, this is just showing how close we are to God. We're all manifestations of the divine essence. The Jews like to say that we are part of God, or we are reflections of the divine light, but we are extremely close to him. That's why I've repeated this, I've said this before about Teresa of Avila's comment, that when you get into the 5th or 6th mansions, the soul has great sorrow looking back on its life at its past sins, because it realizes clearly, it gets a clear vision that you've done all of your sins within God, and that how holy and sweet he is and tender. And you realize it's like that great scene in Wedding Singer with Adam Sandler, which you probably haven't seen. It's like a romantic comedy from the 90s or 2000s, but it's like set in the 80s. But anyway, Drew Barrymore gives him a gift, comes to his house to give him a gift. She had taken time to write a bunch of sheet music out for him, and she has it wrapped up with a bow, and she arrives at the house. But he's bitter because he thought that she was wanting to be with this other dude. And the other dude was rich and whatever. So he's just had all this bitterness in him of all this situation in which he's not getting the girl. She comes to the door and he starts saying mean things to her. And and then she goes, I can't remember what she says, but she's deeply hurt. She starts getting in tears and she leaves, but she throws the gift up in the air when she leaves, and all the papers go everywhere. And then he, I'm going to say a wordy dird, by the way, but you have to make it convey. He looks down and he sees the stuff. She's already taken off in the car, driving away, and he looks at it and he's like, she made a gift for me. I am an asshole. He realizes, this is like what Teresa's talking about. You have this upper vision that God by his grace gives you. And then you realize that everything you've done against God and against your fellow man, and it is against God, was someone who's just trying to give you a gift. I know it doesn't always feel like that. We've talked much about this. I have had my many times of being angry at God, and probably will again. But once you get to a higher level of prayer, you see that. And that's probably where begins what the Desert Fathers talk about, the way of tears. They enter into a time of tears where the monks are crying all the time, just walking around weeping. And it's a delicious sort of weeping, not the guilt-ridden weeping that Satan gives you, but it's a type of weeping that you would never want to go away because it's so pleasant. In fact, Teresa of Avila even talks about that can become a problem because you're crying for guilt of your past sins, but because it's the Holy Spirit doing it, it's pleasant. Everything the Holy Spirit does is pleasant. When Satan gives guilt and tears, it's oppressive and you want it to stop and you want to drown your sorrows in it and drink and not be there. But when God does it, it's like honey, even though it's sorrowful. And Teresa of Avila says it can be a problem that people will try to make themselves cry because they want to have that pleasure. That's also trying to go to a whorehouse. That's trying to milk pleasure out of the deity. He gives you the gift of tears when he knows that your heart is ready to be melted in a certain way. And then he does it in as much as you need it done, and then he withdraws it until a later time. He's very efficient, and he does all things right and proper. We're almost done. Reply to objection 1. This objection would avail if God knew enunciable things after the manner of enunciable things. He doesn't. He knows them in his essence. Reply to objection 2. Enunciatory composition signifies some existence of a thing, and thus God, by his existence, which is his essence, is the similitude of all those things which are signified by enunciation. Guys, this is all the same stuff we're saying. We're going to speed through because I feel like I've already gone long, right?
37.
Oh, that's not bad.
No.
Okay. We just got one beginning of Article 15. Whether the knowledge of God is variable. It seems that the knowledge of God is variable. For knowledge is related to what is knowable, but whatever imports relation to the creature is applied to God from time and varies according to the variation of the creatures. Therefore, knowledge of God is variable according to the variation of creatures.
What a dummy, Larry.
Larry, that's stupid. Why do we have to leave with Larry's stupid question? All right, folks, we'll come back tomorrow and hear Thomas relating that question. Remember, it's all straw. Go pray, go meditate, and spend time in silence. Amen.
Nice. Very good, dude.
Yeah, dude. Okay. Now, a very interesting question arises. Are we off?
Not yet.